Hi everyone. Today I thought I'd share some off-the-cuff thoughts on the energy and the way that it presents itself in the realm, and all of the ideas and the aspects and the situations that seem to be coming towards a point of where most people are trying to question where they actually stand, where they fit in, how they fit in, and do they have to fit in. I've written my notes down on my thoughts because I felt inspired to bring it up this morning and to share with you what I'm seeing on a metaphysical level, how the realm has become um, adaptive, and perhaps also cumulative in terms of its presentation in how people experience things on a more personal level, and something that's come clear through a few ideas and things. It's been standing out for quite some time, perhaps for many years, but maybe centuries even. But I have spoken about it at length, but I perhaps didn't go into so much detail as I should have probably gone into it, because it's such a sensitive subject, because of what it presents for the realm in itself, for the collective as a human race, a human species, and everything else that functions within it. I'd say you could perhaps think of this communication, this space that we're sharing right now, as off the cuff on ideas and maybe just riffing a little on some thoughts and things that's come up. The most important thing that I wanted to bring up was the aspect of duality and how it is implying itself within the realm, how it applies its functionality as a particular archetype for the realm to function within. And there is a thing that we've explored for many years now about wholeness, and how wholeness is perhaps also fundamentally a rogue element that impacts duality in quite perhaps a devastating way. I'm saying it's devastating towards the dual nature of the system in itself, how it is unable to allow wholeness to actually play out as a unique full-bodied structure. So making it more simpler here for you to understand is, this is not a lecture episode or anything like that. This is just me talking on ideas, on what I've observed, call it observations, and a sense of an energy check into the reality as it's playing out. So if you're new here, please welcome and make yourself comfortable. All the information is presented on this channel. This is the Promethean Channel, and my name is Aurora. And if you've been here before and you've always been with me, welcome back. I've taken some time out, as you've noticed. There's been a lot of things that have been taking place in terms of how the energy dynamics have been formulating themselves, or itself, how it plays itself out. And I guess one could almost say that this very much relates to a particular system adjustment to perhaps in a forceful manner, how reality seems to be driven towards. Now, reality in itself as a collective principle or element must be understood as that there are multiple or many or individual elements or aspects within that particular structure. For example, all of the water molecules together make a drop of water, and therefore water is in itself non-dualistic. However, when certain structures take place, or certain impacts take place, or things that are being placed into the reality in itself, it presents new forms of observation in how this particular water structure or water molecules behave. Like, for example, heat creates steam, cold creates ice. I think you get the drift. The water molecules don't split up and run off into different directions, which is why human collective as a whole species is so profoundly observed at all times, and also does a lot of observation within the reality in itself for the purpose of growth to take place. What I'm trying to say here is that duality in itself seems to become a prevailing dominant force that pushes its meaning into a system that seeks to become whole and individual, perhaps individualistic within itself, with its responses and reactions towards duality. In other words, in simple terms, there's a part of the world that wishes to dominate the education system, and there's another part of the world that seeks to fight that dominance. So there's that opposing forces that operate within the structure of the realm. The realm in itself, over in an objective perspective, is essentially a toroidal field, because there is no other model that responds and reacts in such a manner through a resonance through the emotional fields towards these things. In other words, there's a lot of in other words here, because I have to explain how I'm being guided to share with you the information that's come up, and it's perhaps a little bit complex, and perhaps it's also not new to many of you. So what I'm saying is, how can a whole structure function within itself while it is perpetually, let's say, bombarded with dual nature? And that in itself impacts the materialization or manifestation, which is the buzzword to death perhaps, of how to acquire your realm space in which you would like to live within. And does this essentially create an anomalous reaction or response towards the greater reality? How does it respond to someone who lives off the grid, for example? As an example, because you could actually look at it in that way. That person lives in peace. He or she or they are living within a space of their own safekeeping. They live off the grid. They eat from the forest or whatever, and their life is holistic. WHOLE, holistic, in relationship to the nature and the environment around them. Therefore, you have a balanced reaction or balanced relationship between the off-gridders and the ecosystem around them. However, nature in itself is, within its presentation or its actions, always trying to associate or to assimilate what is in its way. Mother Nature in her refined space, within how she is dominant within the reality in itself, because without that force, or without the green trees, without the blue sky, without the sun, without the rain, without the sand, the ground, the earth, and everything else in its structure, is always seeking to move towards a pathway that is a singular pathway that relates to, or a one path going forward in its evolution. Coming back to the off-gridders that are living within that space, if there is they're going to have to chop around their home they have to clean it up at all times around their home. They have to establish their presence within that ecosystem for the ecosystem to adapt to their existence. But the ecosystem doesn't try and take them out. You will find the natural progression of perhaps predatory animals or other animals that might actually try to come towards this place where these people live and maybe look for food. But it's not seeking them out. It hasn't predated on them or spied on them to try and emotionally bring them down in any particular way or force. It merely exists within its own nature. The predator exists within its own nature to try and establish its own existence. And so, coming back now on a metaphysical perspective, looking at the energetic reality in which people live within, in their own individual realities, the person with his own consciousness, with his own soul, his own spirit, within that space he functions within a relationship with that which is around him. In his house, my walls do not want to fall on me because it doesn't like me. My walls in this room are here because it's standing here, because I am within this space, and its relationship to me is that it is a wall or a room. That is the relationship. 4 walls with an enclosure above it is called a room, and the person inside of that room, their relationship with that room is, or that space is, it is a room. Okay, it can be a place of safety, security, however you want to look at it. Now comes the consciousness of mankind with regards to the idea or the idealistic approach towards duality in its nature, that it seeks to dominate and destroy a element that is whole. I've written about this. I just made a little post in the community tab section if you want to read that little part there, to understand where I'm going with what I'm trying to say, because it is something to ponder on. We're going into micro focus here, because, and also objective macro focus. So we will observe the entire process in its entire existence. And like I said, I'm going to be talking off the cuff on things that I've observed. And the first thing that I'm bringing up is to try and explain to you about what duality in its nature is by explaining to you what wholeness is and its relationship with that which is around it. So duality in itself is an old principle based on dominance, based on subjection, based on either way in both parts. It's polarized based on an idealistic idea of how certain power structures should be built. And that means the power structure has to function so that it can dominate that which is around it, or have control over that which is perceived or appearing in its polarity as the dominant party. Okay, it's not politics that we're talking about here. I'm just bringing up an idea of how I'm trying to see it with you, what we're actually experiencing. Those that are, in simple terms, those that are worshipping the duality nature of reality, sees a whole individual, sees the off-gridder as a potential threat. Okay, there is absolutely no response or reason for that, other than the fact that duality in itself is also a thought form that functions within the realm in itself. In the previous material that I've left posted as the most important material to look at, as in Egregorology, it's important to understand the finer details of how egregores operate within its nature, because it requires human interaction to make it function, make it live. It requires human interaction and belief to sacrifice of itself, of his, her, themselves, to worship and hold and upkeep the dual nature. If there is a reward or a thing at the end of the, or the carrot at the end of the stick that is worth, achieving. So in other words, global idealistic controlling structures, and I'm using it in different context here. I'm saying global because that's how they present themselves, as in control of the globe, the light, and they are looking after that by creating dominant structures to suppress or subject or form the environment around them. Is there a difference between that behavior, that lifestyle, versus that which is based on the off-gridders living in the forest? Is there a relationship? Is it the same? I think personally, no. I don't think it's the same, because I'm saying to you that it's possible to hold a holistic nature within the self and still operate off of the grid within a balanced manner, which means if you've removed that tree off of that piece, or that piece of land, you will take the seed of the tree and go plant that essence of the tree somewhere else where it is not in your place, in your way. That is how you make sure that you work alongside or create the relationship with nature around you. In the same way applies with relationships between people and people with one another and themselves. If you are creating a space of safety, of relationship with your family, your kids, whatever your family in itself, your spouses, your partners, whatever, you create. Let's say you're the one that cooks the food, but everybody brings their food to be cooked. Or if there's none of that taking place, it's not a very good example. But what I'm trying to say is if there's energy that's been put into something to create something else, then there is energy that will have to be taken and put back into it, so that there's an equilibrium created. In other words, balance has to be maintained. I took time to cook the meal. The family takes the time to wash the dishes. Do you see what I'm saying? There's the same energetic balance that takes place. If that idea is cultivated a lot within the realm, it will alter the frequency radically if people in a very small particular way start to apply these things. You are invited to go and visit a friend for dinner or whatever, elect to wash the dishes or do something like that. Okay, I'm not going to tell you how to do this specifically in this age, because there's a lot of new ways in how energy can be applied. Essentially, equilibrium or balance is ageless. So it is something that has to be applied within the realm in itself. It is alchemy, in other words. It is how that perspective is applied. So now we're coming back to duality, because that is something that actually stops or tries to or perceives a whole nature as a threat. You can see it when you look at an example like this. There is a consensus that someone should elect to do something, and everybody is wanting to have that person lead the pathway, because you can't get many leaders according to them. You can get only one leader, and that one must lead everybody out of the desert, like Moses and the Egyptians from the biblical mythology. And in the same principle, There has to be a king to control the land. There has to be a king and a queen. But if the queen is gone, the king still rules. So the same thing applies. So coming back to this principle, this new person is now there now. They bring in this new thing. You've just invented a new way of doing something in your garden, okay? Or doing something new. You've built a new system. You've used, let's say, you've used AI to build this new database. The database is now going to be used in your company, and everything you get from the people that are using it is, it's bad, it sucks, you should have done this better, I can't understand how this works, why the fuck did you create this, I don't like this thing that you built. Others will say, my god, it's the most amazing tool you've ever invented, I love it, it works fantastic. Why is that happening? Why is that entire story playing itself out in that way? It's playing itself out in that way because of duality and the nature of the consciousness of mankind that is unable to make the same adjustments. Yet everybody sat around the table and elected this guy to build this database. Everybody elected for it. So why does this happen? And I would say I want to present the idea that you are looking at a dualistic nature or egregor or thought form as the actual root for this particular behavior to take place, irrespective of how those people who have just elected John to build the new database have now decided to tear John down behind his back, or to steal John's ideas and to go run with it and go create something else on the side to make an extra buck. Why is that nature playing itself out? Some are going to say, is this perhaps because of devils? Is it because of demonology? Is it because it's a bad spirited person that's actually doing that? And is it because there's no God there? Or is it because there's too much darkness there? Or is the person depressed? Or whatever the case may be, there's going to be all these hundreds of little reasons that people are going to try and find as to why 40% of the entire board is ripping off John, or 60% of the table of the committee has decided that now John has to be the scapegoat now because damn him, the database I can't understand, so because I can't understand it, I don't like John. Automatically, within an hour prior to greeting John and saying, hey, well done, thank you for creating this database, we're all going to work happy together, happy family, blah, blah, blah. Why? Why does that happen? So, if you look at the most obvious in this nature, you're looking at the egregor of the belief system of the duality that was created as an idea. Perhaps you can look at the principle of how ancient prophets back in the day wrote their interpretation of what they believe. There's a light and there's light and there's dark, there's night and there's day. But what was never put in place was the fact that there is light in the day and in the night. There is no actual duality taking place. There is complementary. It is complementary to one another. The day cannot exist without the night, and the night cannot exist without the day. And another thing that seems to come up is the fact that there are these people that are still perpetuating the idea about love and light, because they want to live in this little pole, this polarity. They want to stand there on the pin like angels and sing the praises of themselves being in love and light. And that means that person functions in a space of needing to be, perhaps subconsciously, subjected to by something that is greater than them, so that they can feel that they have the right to stand in the love and light pole. It's very much the same thing as what these witchcraft people, or people that practice witchcraft, and magicians and wizards and sorcerers do in terms of trying to establish their own ground by pushing chaos. I saw that there was an article that was written somewhere in Reddit where they said they were giving commentary on certain magicians that didn't promote chaos enough, and therefore his or her works were not suitable for her practice, and therefore got ripped off because it wasn't chaotic enough, because he says he is a chaos magician, but he promotes something else. Why is that? So the nature of the reality in itself seems to have been stuck in a position of duality, while the rest of the consciousness is adapting and growing and evolving towards a holistic metaphysical space of awareness in his or her relationship to it around them, to the reality around them, while the others are holding back the wheels from turning. So let me give you an example here, a little idea of a picture for you to think on. Think of the train. The train is going on the tracks, and somewhere along the line, in the back of the carts, or somewhere in the middle, or in the front, wherever you want to see it, are the wheels buckling, while the rest of the train is actually moving forward. What I'm explaining to you is momentum of consciousness is pushing through, going forward, and it is essentially crumbling those wheels away. Duality is starting to crumble in itself. So now it cannot hold back the growth and the healing and the awareness of the greater reality consciousness that moves towards a pathway. You could look at it as people that just refuse to move forward, refuse to accept that there is more than just one side of the pole. It's the same people that have designed even the same model space to use, to uphold duality at all cost. And you could look at these people that are using these works as maybe even people from tarot land. I'm using that as an example. There's a card in the deck called the High Priestess. The entire deck is built in the structure of the Kabbalah system. And the Kabbalah system definitely venerates, like I said, like you know now, the details of what it is. But if you're new to this, I would advise you to go to the video where I spoke about the Josephic video as well, where I spoke about Metatron. Go there, I'll put the links at the bottom. If you're familiar with the work, you will understand why duality is an old system that actually has to, or is being made undone, because its fundamental structure in itself requires a holistic, whole ability or approach to grow. So in other words, it's like that drop of water in that petri dish. So to come back to the idea about duality, let's simplify this even more. Duality in itself requires the worship of the white pillar and the black pillar, Joachim and Boaz, or Boaz, in right next to the high priestess that sits in the middle, the feminine element, and it is essentially between those two poles in the tree of Kabbalah. So that structure in itself seems to be going through some sort of adjustment period as well. The people in Tarot land, and I've gone in there to investigate how it presents itself, is essentially super small. You could say that there's like 13 million people that are actually doing it. that form of divination using tarot in itself means that they're just playing forward the same ideology or the same archetype or the same egregor that requires duality to function. And in itself, yes, you're going to see that is where they wish to place themselves, in the center between those two pillars. In other words, it promotes the idea as a verbal prayer or a verbal message. That is what Torah or tarot is. I'm not going to go into details and explain to you and analyze it. You must do the research yourself. I'll explain to you that it's greatly flawed for the reason that it does not allow self-growth to take place. Granted, there are those that are doing it because they require income. Overall, essentially, there is very small number of people that are actually truly psychic and that are actually truly understanding and reading the energy the way that it should be read. That means I read your energy for you and I help you to give you guidance as to what I'm seeing ahead for you, because I have that gift inside of me, and you will then respond back by asking me questions and we will exchange that discussion. It can be done without cards, is what I'm saying. Moving along. So here's the most amazing thing. On my side quest of my life, I decided to invent a deck of cards that can actually read the energy in a whole nature. Okay? Non-tarot. Okay? It took a long time to do that, to put it together. But I saw it as something interesting to do. Is it possible? You know me, as I've said before, I'm my own guinea pig, so I will do these tests. I will run them in the laboratory of my consciousness, and I will run them in this laboratory to test it out and then come back to you and share with you my findings. And it caused such a ripple in the thought form of the tarot land that it essentially couldn't handle the way that the cards were presented within the system, because each and every person that picks up the tarot deck would place it down and connect with the thought form that controls that moment in the reading. There are some people that have actually said that this, in a way, depending on how it's done, can either create clickbait. You always get that everywhere, no matter where you look at it, to keep the audience member focused on that particular drama or trauma that they keep playing out through the readings while they're flipping the cards out. And you could see the same example. It's not just in this place. It's in other places, like, for example, where there is health being promoted, health and wellness, exercises, where people talk about diets and all of that, and they keep the person stuck in that space. There are some, like I said, the actual people that are actually doing the real way of teaching you. There's very few of them, but the rest of it is just copies of the same guy that's doing the same thing. They all think up another way of trying to get people to come towards them so that they could benefit from that like or that comment or that money that they're going to throw at or invest in that thing. Okay, so like I said, you may have gone through all of these journeys on your self-discovery and have found that there's like this guy, he's amazing at what he does. This guy's name is I can't even remember, but he was talking about fascia training, okay? And he actually had the respect by saying where he was learning how to understand it, and it comes from Systema, okay, which is a Russian way of using the force in your energy field, like chi energy, and making it stronger and being able to protect yourself. So nonetheless, when that guy starts to promote his work, he always brings it up where he gets his information from. He then teaches people how to understand their inner energy field, and within months of his video channel, there are suddenly mushrooms everywhere that have popped up, with all being expert in knowing how to be a fascia trainer and a fascia this and a fascia that, and now they're using the word fascia for whatever. Okay, fascia is the inner network structure inside of your body on which your nerves, your lymph nodes, and that fine line of energy rests upon. It's like that skin that's on the chicken breast. If you take that skin off, you can see this is a very sticky sort of skin. It's electromagnetically conductive to the rest of the body through the consciousness, actually. And you can work with that and train that to actually build your body back up. So going in there, I actually went onto this guy's course, and he explained it really well. Once you've learned what this guy says about the fascia, you cannot not know it. And by knowing that in its fullness, and actually applying it, you'll see that all of these others that have come up with the same sort of inventive ideas about things, that they are all copying the one person, the person that is in a whole structure, okay, and trying to bite away his presence online by bringing up a lot of information to actually drown out this man's channel. And he's been doing this for many years, longer than they even exist on the planet, on their planet, their planchette of their reality. In other words, older than them, old school in this way, etc. Why does that happen? Why is there that focus to try and destroy something that is whole? Why not just do something that could be complementary to what that man's doing, and it might create a better form of support for the subject, so that there's more study done in it to understand that it can actually help you heal yourself. The same thing happens, let me go back to the tarot thing again, that it's the egregor in itself. And you can actually, let me say this, you can actually talk to the egregor and it can respond back to you. You didn't know that it can happen. You can, by the position in where you are. If you're outside of the egregor and you're looking into this frequency and you're communicating with it, its response back to you, you can get that. And I think some of you have been able to find that out as well. So, and it sees a new form of divination as something that hurts it. It said, you hurt me with your new invention. So I said, why do I hurt you with this new invention? It's just a test. It was a test when I set it up a long time ago. And it said to me, because if this invention is accepted and used, then there is no deficit in the nature of the duality. Then there's no yearning to eat. So, coming back, a natural form of existence within the realm will become deteriorated. It will lose its vigor over time. Humans grow old and die. Okay, the material nature of humanity. Trees grow and they die, and trees grow and they die, and the same thing takes place. Its actual focus on bringing in a new, old form of divination. Divination, let me say what is divination, okay? Maybe there's some of you want to know about that. Like I said, I'm off the cuff today. So divination is the ability to have clairvoyance, the ability to hear things, to see things, clairsentience. It's not remote viewing, okay? It's the ability to be psychically connecting to things, psychoconnective, and so on. Okay, there's a few of them, clairs. Look for all the clairs and you'll know that that's basically what it's about. If you come into this position, if you have the gifts within you, which I know many of you do, some of you are trying to put it together, that's your journey. You are there to want to assist either yourself, your family, or people that you care for. And you want to do that with being in the respectful space of that person. Okay, that's just the story around it. All right. So now, you can be an excellent storyteller or an excellent book reader or an excellent card worker, card reader. And you may have zero psychic skills. Did you know that? There are a lot of these people that are essentially doing it because they need either a salary from it. But I say, why not just do it right the first time round? Why not just focus on something that is in your nature? Like, the person is actually a very good listener and they can give good advice. Why not just do something like that? Why now give in and buy in to the egregor of duality and become subjected to its existence? I use the example of Star Wars, where the Jabba the Hutt is holding Princess Leia attached to this chain around her neck. This thing has got no shape. It's just got this, yeah, I don't know, I can't say it, slug. It looks like a slug. And it's got a big mouth because all it does is eat, devouring energy being given into it. And it feeds itself continuously through the energy in which it holds. It's got its chain of power to the person, the soul, the feminine, that woman that's chained up, Carrie Fisher, I think. I'm not going to put a picture of it down on here because it makes me feel uncomfortable when I look at it, but you can look at it for yourself. I'll put the link underneath. And she is tied up to him. It's the same picture in the Devil card in Tarot, where it holds two people by the chain with chains holding them, and they can actually take the chain off. They can, if they wanted to. So why is it that people are wanting to do are people just generally lazy? I'm just generally speaking now. I'm not saying everything to you that you are. I'm just having a conversation with you. Is that an issue, laziness and apathy that basically just holds people in that sort of structure, that dual structure? Because you see it in politics as well. You see it in everything that humans have touched in the reality, where there is a need to try and reinvent or a need to try and redo something better than a previous person, with the idea of actually destroying that person in the background. Like what they've done with Nikola Tesla. His surname is associated with Elon Musk, who's never dreamt up Tesla technology or Tesla information ever in his life. It's life, because he's not human when I look at his energy. He's just a useful tool for the dual egregor to talk through. And you see it basically everywhere. You see it in the way that things have been brought up. People write things, they talk about things, they bring new things in, they try to bring in an idea. I'm talking about the people that want to help people. They bring these things in and another person goes, fuck him, fuck her, I'm going to do this better and I'm going to take all the money. And that person has studied that for years and centuries, long before. He used all the books and things from previous centuries to try and bring the information in. He had the intention of actually trying to show up how things are and understood. He never made a cent of it. But the dickhead that stole from him is making all that money, because that person is the one that is worshipping that dual egregor. Right, what is the dual egregor? What did it look like when I looked at it? Well, you know that old statue, Janus? It's got two heads. It literally has two heads, and it's not a hermaphrodite, and it's not an androgynous. It's an entity with two heads, pretty much like that eagle with the two heads that are on the Rothschild's shield. So the same thing applies. They've just turned it into a bird, because then they can control the mind, the air. The symbol for the bird is the air in the mind, the consciousness, to control the rest of the reality. So they've used all of their resources to try and dominate the air waves. The air waves with two heads, one that can control the future by controlling the past. That's how they operate. That's how these people are. So you can see the same dual egregor as being the worshipped entity that keeps people in a worshipful space in that way. Notice how it said to me, you hurt me. If you bring something new in here, you hurt me. So I said, but divination is, and I named all those things, and it also lets people scry in the water and all of that stuff. I'm just like saying whatever there was. I actually had it visit me. Okay? I haven't spoken about this for a long time. I just thought, let me just bring it up and tell you exactly why this duality thing is a bit of an issue. In itself, it's its own Jabba the Hutt. It's stuck there. It's like that same so it said to me, but because those things are natural and real, people will lose faith in it. They will stop worshipping it. If it is stopped, if the worship is not happening anymore, there's no Torah or tarot that's happening. There's people that are exploring their spiritual gifts and reading information and energy for people so that they are able to understand, to help themselves. It's like you would say a modern way of being a guide, or a supportive person, or someone who is a counselor. Okay, that's basically it. If there are people that are actually doing natural counseling properly, the way that it's within them, there'd be a lot of peace, a lot of spaces that people would be a lot more relieved about. There'll be less bullshit. Okay, more people would actually have work. You can look at it that way too. There's another thing that's also quite disturbing. This person, I found it on the side, and I don't know if you know about this creature, but I think it's it's a bit of a problem, because it uses the ability to do remote viewing on every person that exists without their consent. That's like spying on another person. But then when I'm telling you this, I know you're kind of like saying to me, yeah, I'm kind of aware of it. Nothing's new here with regards to that. So basically, coming back to the whole thing about duality in itself and riffing this last part for you, I'm saying to you that duality in itself requires its worship. It requires its belief in there's evil and there's good. Those two can never be next to one another. There's either good or bad. Let alone evil is a choice. Let me just say that. You know that it is a choice, especially if there's evil practiced. You make the choice to commit evil crime. It's on you. It's all your stories. But how do you step away from these things? How do you become unaffected by these dualities that are constantly being propelled at you? I mean, here is a most amazing situation. We've got beautiful country. We've got animals in reserves. We have to protect them in reserves because other people come and try and hunt them, and they supposedly do it because they have to, or they do it because of vanity. And then that idea is promoted as this is the place to come and hunt. So the person who, the main puppet in control or in charge, then says, okay, come everybody, come from everywhere, come everybody, just come here, let's just make war in here, let's bring all the people that created the wars in their country and dump them here for some moolah on the side. Let's have that. And that is the same thing. The same dual nature plays itself out. And then in the back of the, with the other face, he looks at the rest of the world and says, okay, Donald Trump, F you because of X, Y, and Z reasons. Why? See, again, you're looking at all of these things. It's all playing out in the same dual nature. There's a struggle for this entity to hold its heads together, because without the worshippers and players of its kingdom, there is no duality. Okay, so coming back, bringing it all together for you, because I don't see water cells jumping out of the spoon and saying, fuck you, I don't want to turn into an ice crystal. Okay, that doesn't happen, but there is a way that it is able to sustain its own original form, and that is because of its nature. And so its nature is to not become this or that or the other, but to always remain true to its original existence and where it comes from to begin with. So if water's nature is true to the original creative forces that function, that hold the realm together in its structure, then that is what it will be adhere to. It will adhere to that, and it will function towards that, and it will live within that space, irrespective of someone goes and lights it up with a lighter or freezes it. It'll still be water. And so the same thing applies to the consciousness of humanity within its reality, in its relationship to it, that you are true to who you are within your deeper consciousness, and nothing and no one can change that about you. You are true to what you are, what you focus on within yourself. And that is another reason what I wanted to say before I leave you. And if you've come towards the last part of the video, I thank you. Thank you for walking with me and riffing with me and spitting out the dust and saying basically that you are true to your own nature. If you've finished the course, the pneumatics of metaphysics, you have understood exactly what I've just explained to you. If you are brand new to that course, it is free. If you are most welcome to sign up to it and go through the course. It is life-changing if you learn to re-tap into the consciousness of who you are, because that's what it's about, is to remind you of who you are, your true nature, so that you are unable to become split apart, and you may take the wisdom with you until you are passed over and still remain intact with that wisdom, so that it can never be removed from you. That it was the intention why it was created. It creates a mimetic imprint in your consciousness, so that you know who you are. All the information that you found in that course is your own information, interpretation of it. I'm not saying you're going to remember my voice and my face and my words and what I wrote as yours, because that's not going to happen at all. You're going to remember your own information. I just showed you how to do it. Anyway, I'm going to let you go. I just wanted to riff along with you, and I will see you again sometime, and let me know your thoughts. And please don't forget to remember to like, share, and subscribe, and please share. It's about time that the realm needs to be understood, needs to see new things for what they are, as opposed to things that have always been there, that are just copy paste stuff. So like I said, there's only one of me, and there's only one of this channel, the Promethean, and my name is Aurora, and I will speak to you soon again, and cheers.